The reviews for the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is coming out, and honestly, it feels to me like Google's kind of giving up on the smartphone market. And I'm saying this because when the Pixel 10 Pro series was coming out, I was expecting this to be a huge leap in camera performance from Google because it's the 10th generation phone. It was a chance to make a big statement. But they didn't make a huge improvement or anything that puts them on top or on par with Samsung and Apple. Not that it was a bad camera or anything, but they need to do better. And then the Tensor G5, the processor, wasn't really that competitive. I was expecting it to be more competitive, but yeah. And now with the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, I mean, this phone honestly to me feels like Google is just made a foldable phone just for the sake of making a foldable phone, and especially compared to the competition. I mean, what is the probably the realistic competition for this phone? It's the Z Fold 7, and Z Fold 7 took a generational leap this year. I mean, it's really slim. It looks like it's more futuristic, and it feels like a proper foldable phone now. I mean, honestly, the only thing that is probably holding that phone back is the ability to give a bigger battery life, but I'm sure they'll figure it out at some point. And that is difficult to do when they're making such slim phones. But the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, I mean, just looking at the front, there's a lot of stuff going on the front that I have a problem with. That makes this wheel look 2 generations old. First of all, there's a huge bezel on the front of the display. That's a problem. And then there's the fact that one edge of the phone is squared off and the other edge of the phone was curved. And one edge being squared off, it makes sense because it's a folding phone, it has to be squared off. But then why not just make the entire phone squared up like the Z Fold 7 and make it look aesthetically better? But even then, I guess Google went for a different design look, and we could accept that. But the problem is that what the entire display is actually curved at all edges, and even at the squared edges, which means that there's a small piece of metal at the top and bottom that's visible, and that makes it look like an old phone. It just makes it look like an old phone. There's no way to get around it. So just looking at it from the front, it looks like an old phone. And then there's the cameras. From what I know about it, it seems like the Pixel 10 Pro Fold's cameras are not as good as the Pixel 10 Pro, which is a big problem considering that this is a phone with a huge price tag. I mean, I think it's $1,700 something, and and 1,70,000 something rupees. So it's an expensive phone. It's cheaper than the Z Fold 7, I think, depending on the market. I think in India the prices are pretty similar, but I think abroad it's probably more expensive. So I think I don't know. I'm not sure, but anyway, so its competition is the Z Fold 7, and considering that this phone, the whole focus of the Pixel phones are using great software to make great photos and all that. Yeah, this being affordable is not really a good enough excuse for the phone not having a as good as camera as the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. It is what it is. So the cameras are okay, but not that great. The front display looks really old. And then there's the Tensor G5, which is not as powerful as the Snapdragon 8 Elite. And that was a problem. But now the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 is coming, and that's going to be more powerful than the Elite. So how much more powerful is that going to be in and then the Pixel 10 Pro Fold? I mean, that's how a lot of people would look at it. They'll look at the, even though the processor came out earlier on, they'll look at the closest dates compared to when the Tensor G5 came out and when the 8 Elite Gen 5 comes out, and that's a problem. So it's not as powerful as the 8 Elite phones, The cameras aren't as great as the Pixel 10 Pro series. The front looks really old. And yeah, with the price tag, what are people paying? Why are people paying this much money for this phone? To get the Google foldable software experience? I mean, is that really enough? I don't think so. And I don't know. I'm really disappointed with this year's Pixel launches. This was a good chance, and I feel like Google just didn't go hard enough to do it. And it feels like Google aren't really all that focused on the smartphone market. And I guess it is what it is. But yeah, the Pixel 10 Pro series, 10 Pro Fold series, it feels like a bit of a disappointment to me. And what to say? I mean, Google makes the Android software, and I assume that they could do a lot of stuff and make this a great phone, but it isn't that. And who's honestly gonna be buying this phone? I have no idea. Anyone who wants to buy a foldable, the obvious choice is the Z Fold 7. Considering the prices are so close or around the same, depending on the market. I don't see any reason to pick this phone over the Z Fold 7, even with the Google software experience. Considering the price of these phones, these are really expensive phones. I don't see anyone who would actually go and buy these phones, and that's a big problem for Google. And well, honestly, this feels like I'm gonna be ranting now. So I guess this is all I have to say. Now, oh yeah, there is one good thing that this new Fold has. I think its IP rating is much better. I don't know the exact number, but still, that's not the primary thing that people focus on with these phones, and feels like Google could have done a lot more, like with the Pixel 10 Pro series, but this is all we're getting, and well, I guess Samsung and Apple are still on top for now. So yeah.